Hey, SatPulse family. So today I've got a little bit of a different flavor for you. This is a request from a friend of ours. And thank you again for you guys who are subscribed. Please don't forget to do that again. Hit the thumbs up, like, share, subscribe. Help me grow this channel and help me grow the crypto community's education platform here, because my goal is to really just help you guys, help everyone understand what is Bitcoin, what is the power of Bitcoin, what is everyone talking about, what is blockchain, what is the future of digital money, what are CBDCs. And this is just the first of many conversations that I want to have with you guys. And when we talk about Bitcoin, you have to remember it is the first decentralized digital currency, right? It's the first killer app on the blockchain, as a friend would say it. All Bitcoin transactions are simply one thing. It's a ledger, and it's a virtual distributed ledger that anyone can understand and take a look at any time, and it's accessible for anyone to see. It gives you complete control over your money, over the funds that you have in your wallet, and only you can spend it. Unlike anything else like that's regulated by governments or banks, Bitcoin is regulated by code, and only the code can it do. So as more and more places accept Bitcoin, as Bitcoin becomes more utilized, we understand the demand will go up. And as the demand goes up and the supply starts to go down, and later we'll talk about what exactly that means in a future video, what the Bitcoin supply is. And we'll keep talking about that. But for now, I just kind of want to get us started. And we're going to cover a little bit about truly what is money, what's the difference between paper money, fiat money, what's it looking like, transitioning into digital money, being like what we see it today as, digitalized and essential currencies as well. What is Bitcoin in comparison to all these things? So we're going to walk through it. So what I really want to take a step back to is back in the day, they used to use gold and silver. And we're just going to cut it really simple and dry. Think about Little House on the Prairie, right? When they used to go in the store and they would record everyone's purchases. And at the end of the month, they would settle up and there was a little ledger there. And really, that's what's going on here. When paper money transitioned from gold into fiat, the banks were now responsible for keeping a ledger, and that ledger would, whenever you swipe your card or whenever you pay with cash, it goes into their system, because the system takes out the cash from your account and tells you how much you have left. And really, the banks are self-regulating, and that's part of the problems that we're seeing with our current system, is that the money is printed in oversupply and it starts devaluing our dollars. And sometimes the banks don't even have the money that they claim to have because they've loaned it out and there's no ability for them to actually give their deposits back. So these are the things that we're seeing as problems with the current monetary system, as we see centralized dollars at banks and money being printed by the Federal Reserve just into existence. And this is the kind of stuff that devalues our asset. The way it used to be was you would take gold or silver and you would settle up in gold or silver. Then it transitioned to the dollar, which was backed by gold and silver. And then that stopped, and now here we are again. The dollar is backed by absolutely nothing. And most people live their life pretending like this monopoly money is actually controlled and regulated. But in fact, it's more like monopoly than you think, because in monopoly, if you run out of money, they literally say, just make a piece of paper and make your own money up again. So just print more money. One of the things that Bitcoin doesn't do comparatively to these old traditional systems is Bitcoin is immutable. There's no way to change Bitcoin. With Bitcoin, there's one thing that makes it's not centralized, and it's limited by quantity. So when you're transitioning to digital money, you have to talk about some of the problems that we see, especially when you talk about centralized money. There's so much control given to all of these governments, all of these nations. They can print money as much as they want. They can give you stimulus for certain products. And one of the things that we see is the quantitative easing that they do. And you guys know that there are sections where this stuff and understanding these words are important. But the reality of what they're doing is they're controlling the money supply. The more money there is, the more it's in abundance, the cheaper it is to get. The more scarce money dollars are, the more it costs to get. And that's what we're seeing happening here with the interest rates. The money supply has been going down and the interest rates have been going up. And right now, we've seen a huge mismanagement, and governments all over the world, a lot of fiats are having this problem that they're just printing too much money, and it's causing a ton of inflation that's eroding the value of our citizens. So that's the problem with printing too much money. The other problem is, again, you're giving control to a third party, either a bank or a government, because should anything happen today, and it's funny, you hear the Bitcoin maximalists address this conversation often, which is, well, what happens if the internet shuts down? What happens if the power goes out? I would argue, what happens to your accounts if the internet goes out? If the power goes out, you can no longer interact with your checking accounts. You can't go to the ATMs. You can't go to the grocery store and buy anything. You can't fill up your tank. You can only use what you have in your hands. And in a supply issue like that, where the dollar becomes so unvalued, is the dollar really a choice to hold? The question comes, what is Bitcoin's role here? Because when you understand that that would be a limited attack vector and it would be a huge problem globally, where you're no longer worried about just having Bitcoin or dollars in the bank account. You're worried about, what do you have at home? What kind of food do you have at home? What supplies do you have at home? But when we talk about this, you understand in 2009, it just started changing the way that they came in and bailed out banks, printed more money. And we're seeing that again now with bank failure. So in 2008, as a response to this, a guy named Satoshi Nakamoto released a white paper. What is a white paper? Just a really cool name for a fancy paper that was written about a new monetary system with a transparent ledger without a central authority that eliminates the problem that they were trying to have before, which is the issue of double spending. How can you not double spend the same token? The way Bitcoin's blockchain is, and we're going to talk about it because we're going to compare Bitcoin to a lot of these other companies, like banks, like fiats, because again, the Federal Reserve is just a bank. It's a company. It's not part of the government. It has nothing to do with the federal government. And it's not actually a bank. It doesn't hold any money. So the idea of a Federal Reserve bank being anything other than a bank is hilarious. And we're going to talk a little bit about this. But one of the things that Bitcoin did when he introduced the white paper in 2009, he was able to say, not only are we going to have a transparent ledger, but it's decentralized, so no one person can control it, and it's pseudo-anonymous. What is pseudo-anonymous? Now, that means we can't identify Patrick Hakim as the owner of a Bitcoin wallet. When you see a Bitcoin wallet, it comes in as a transaction. And this transaction is shown only as a string of letters and numbers, just a whole row of characters of letters and numbers. And you can't distinguish one identical user from a different identical user because it doesn't track your IP addresses. That's not what the blockchain tracks. But the idea was here that Bitcoin could be used in a way to transact and store value. And we saw this happen when you guys heard about the Bitcoin Pizza Day. That was one of the first large tests by a guy named Laszlo. And he bought a couple of Bitcoins for a couple of pizzas for 10,000 Bitcoin, I believe is what it was. Today worth way over hundreds of millions of dollars. And there's not really any one computer, right, that holds this ledger. So when he sent this money, all of the hosts of this network, all the Bitcoin miners, and we'll talk more about Bitcoin miners later, the Bitcoin miners validate the network. And what they did was they were able to send this decentralized asset for the pizza. So he paid in pizzas. So not only is one computer storing it, but everybody across the network said, yeah, we saw the 10,000 Bitcoin exchange from this address to this address. So again, you can go back to this day and see the transaction in the blockchain because Bitcoin is immutable, which means you can never change Bitcoin. What happened in 2019 has always been that same way since then. It will never change because the way the blockchain works, that's why we call it a blockchain, is it requires the end of the last signature hash in the last transaction is the beginning of the new transaction. So the way it works is they're all linked to each other, and you can trace Bitcoin back from the first blocks when Satoshi mined the first blocks and released it. And again, this is one of the things because you go, well, what's the big news? Well, the big news is for the first time ever, you can now transact a store of value from one person to another person without a central third party, no counterparty risk. No one has to hold your assets or give you permission to be able to send those assets instantaneously, right? So it's frictionless. There is no issue with Bitcoin when you send it. If you send Bitcoin to that address, you can guarantee it's there. And so can any other user who uses a blockchain explorer to look for that transaction. everyone can look and say, we agree the Bitcoin moved from this address to that address. So it's not something that you could take away. On top of that, there's a huge amount of information that's available because not only has Bitcoin shown that the ledger is immutable, but it not only can it not change, but it would take such a huge amount of attack to overcome the network because of the hash power. And if you guys haven't heard about that, look at my video from yesterday. I explain a little bit about the hash power, but at the end of the day, the Bitcoiners, they're holding Bitcoin and they're continuing to adopt Bitcoin. Bitcoin now, in comparison to banks, right? They can't control your money. There is no middleman, and you don't need fees to use and open up a Bitcoin account. You can open up a wallet and it gives access to on the unbanked in so many areas where they traditionally have no access to Bitcoin. And that's why you're seeing Bitcoin become a new world reserve currency, not just for places like El Salvador, but even as we speak now, we're looking at the idea of gold and Bitcoin backed central bank digital currencies. And it's like this insane theory of before when I started mining Bitcoin, it was a joke. It was like, what's going on? I can't believe this is profitable. I would go to the ATM and send some Bitcoin to it and it would pop out cash. And I remember my wife just cracking up as the ATM wouldn't stop spitting out 20s. And that was when she realized this is real money. And I looked at her and I was thinking, you think that is real money? And I just showed you like this entire network of how you can take Bitcoin, send it to an ATM machine and spit out cash. And you think the value is in the cash. Today, she no longer thinks that because as she's seen us go through many bear markets, we understand that people are starting to accept Bitcoin more. People are starting to understand how Bitcoin works. People are starting to talk about Bitcoin mining. People are starting to figure out that it is a scarce resource with a limited supply, right? There will never be any more than 21 million Bitcoin ever created in the ecosystem. There will never, ever be ability to release more than the blockchain says that you will release every day. So we know the supply coming in today, every 10 minutes on average, we know that that supply is 6.25 Bitcoin. And we know the halving is coming here in about a year. We've seen the cycles before. My wife understands that. And this is something that I've even seen her talk to her friends about. Not only are people like that accepting, but you're seeing banks come in. You're seeing a huge market for exchanges and ETFs coming in. You see Coinbase being listed as the primary custodian for almost every ETF. And what's going on there, I'm not sure. But one thing that I do see is when you learn to purchase Bitcoin, and please, if you need help with that, subscribe, send me a message, and I'll make another video about wallets and things that you could do. But the idea of Bitcoin that I want everyone to hear here is it's such a limited supply. It's the only asset in history where we've ever known how much exists. You can't say that with gold. You can't say that with silver. And it can't be manipulated by anybody or any government. You can't give out fake Bitcoin. It doesn't work that way. You can always authenticate it on the blockchain if it's legit or not, or it will not come to the right wallet. I mean, be cautious out there because people who know that you have Bitcoin are going to target you. So I want to make sure that you guys just take this as a general understanding of what is Bitcoin, right? Bitcoin is the best money that has ever been created. It is the best asset class that has ever been created. And I hope that this kind of hits home and allows you to see a different perspective on what the blockchain is, because it's not just valued to me and my family. It's not just valued to people that I know around me. It's valued globally. This is something that even as Nigerian fiat was failing, they couldn't get rid of their fiat fast enough to get Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is going to be that ship that everyone around, as everything is sinking, they are going to attach themselves to Bitcoin, because Bitcoin ship is the thing that you want to attach your life raft to at this point. When you're looking at a hedge against inflation, when you're looking at its value against gold, silver, the S&P, Bitcoin always wins every 4 years. So take a second, zoom out. This isn't financial advice, but if you guys like this content, please like, share, subscribe, get the word out, help me grow. Leave a comment below so I understand if you have any other questions or videos you want me to make. I'll keep making them for you guys. And again, you guys are my family out there. I'm looking for all of you guys to win. So until next time, keep stacking.